it's Mo. It is March and welcome to my first What I Read in a Week video. I'm gonna try this out for March in lieu of or in addition to, I haven't decided, my monthly wrap-ups. So in January and February, I talked about how I really have not been satisfied with my wrap-ups, just in the fact that they're very, very, very long. I had to split January into two parts. I don't know what happened with February yet. I just feel like videos over 45 minutes are too long. So in effort to change that, I'm going to be trying a couple of different things over the next couple of months to see if I can find a different style of wrap-up that I also enjoy. Because the thing is, I really like my vlog style monthly reading wrap-ups. The way I usually do them is I will take a clip every few days of all the books that I've finished in that time. I will try to talk for only about 5 minutes about each book, but since I read on average 12 to 20 books a month, those end up getting very long. 5 times 20 is a very long video, right? And the other problem that I have is that those videos are so long to edit that they always take me a really long time and they end up not coming out for a very long time. So for instance, my January 2026 wrap-up didn't come out until the last day of February, and that was only part 1. The second part actually came out in March. I know it doesn't actually matter because these are evergreen videos in a way, because if you want to learn about the books that I read, you can learn about them anytime, and you can always go back to all the videos that I've made before if you want to see what kind of books that I read. And I suggest checking my wrap-ups because I read like a varied amount of books. Like I read a lot of different kinds of books. Mostly backlist, not mostly new releases, mostly general fiction, literary fiction, and nonfiction, and mystery. I do love a mystery. Those are really the types of books that I read, but my reading is so varied. So if you want an example, pick any wrap-up from any time and you'll have that. I think March is a great time to start something new because March is traditionally my TBR month. It's also March Mystery Madness. It's also Middle Grade March. It's also so many other fun booktube events. But personally, March is the time of the year when I really assess my TBR, when I really look at it. I have a lot of videos coming out in March, hopefully, that have to do with my TBR, have to do with my library, that have to do with the idea of TBR, with challenges that I'm working on this year. We are not quite at the end of my Read What You Own challenge, but almost, so there will be a follow-up video to that. I have posted a few videos about this year's Read What You Own, so I'll leave those listed down below. So my idea for what I read in a week is to do not necessarily a vlog. I think sometimes it'll come out as a vlog. This one won't come out as a vlog, but what I will do with this one is insert some footage throughout my week. And I think all these videos will have a little bit of my life in them, a little bit of what I'm doing in a week, because I think what I'm doing in a week does determine what I read in a week a lot of times. And then sometimes I think it'll be much more vlog-like, sometimes I think it'll be much less vlog-like, but either way, they will be much shorter, hopefully like under 20 minutes long or about 20 minutes long, or maybe I'm gonna regret saying that, so I shouldn't say how long it's going to be, but that's my kind of idea. And I'll just talk about the books that I read the previous week. Now, ideally, I would like these to be like staggered in that this video will come out and I'll be talking about the prior week, but because I'm just starting this and because I've already done my February wrap-up, it's not out yet, obviously, this one is going to be a little bit closer to home. So my issue is that I have trouble editing with a fast turnaround time. Like people like Criminali who do videos like this, or Book Chat with Pat, or Aaron Read a Book, or Aaron Read a Book, they do the video and then they like turn around and edit it right away. And I struggle with that. So I think they'll probably normally be a little bit of lag time. Throughout this experiment in March, we'll see if we like this format. We'll see if we, and by we I mean me, can do what I'm setting out to do, can make the video with a little bit less turnaround time than normal, but not too much, and if these videos make sense to me. So we're gonna go back to February because a week ago today, I was just finishing Between the World and Me by Ta-Nahisi Coates. This is a nonfiction, part memoir, part history, part political observation and social observation about being Black in America. I'm not going to talk much about this one because you will eventually, very soon, hopefully see my February wrap up. But know that a week ago today, I was finishing this book. The first book that I officially finished in March was On the Rooftop by Margaret Wilkenson Sexton. This is a literary fiction, women's fiction book following a mother and her 3 daughters. So they live in California in like the 50s. She has experienced a lot of racial segregation. She's experienced a lot of racial prejudice. She's experienced the tail end of slavery and Jim Crow laws from where she's from and from her own personal experience. And she kind of went out to California to live in a city where Black people were more accepted, where there was community, where there were Black business owners, where there was Black churches, and the idea that she could give her family and her daughters a better life. One of the ways that she wants to give her daughters a better life is by molding them into singers. She sees talent in her daughters, and she has kind of driven these 3 girls to be a girl group, and that was kind of sort of always the mom's dream too. So she's kind of living vicariously through these 3 daughters. Throughout this book, we see the relationship between the 3 daughters and the mom, their relationships to each other, and their relationships to becoming a girl group. So obviously the mom is not connected to the music industry or anything like that. So they're singing in nightclubs, they're singing in their house, they're singing up on the rooftop of their little brownstone or building where they live to practice, and they are getting noticed, and the mom's dream is that they will eventually enter the music industry and become a real popular girl group. And then we see how that dream may or may not be the girl's dream as well. We see how that dream may or may not be achieved over time. And we really delve into the mom's life and her experience losing her husband, the mom Vivian. We also see from perspectives of the daughters. So the middle daughter Esther, the oldest daughter Ruth, and the youngest daughter, who I can't remember her name, Chloe. I read this book on audio. It was narrated by Robin Miles, who is excellent. I also listened to another book narrated by Robin Miles last month, The Autobiography of My Mother by Jamaica Kincaid. And these books could like not be more different, and the narration could not be more different. So it was really fascinating to kind of almost back to back hear Robin Miles do 2 totally different narrations. Very cool. And I liked this book just fine. There were a lot of times when I thought I would DNF it because it is a very quiet book in a lot of ways. Like, not a ton happens. It is definitely like a general fiction, easy to read, easy to digest kind of book, and it definitely veers towards women's fiction, which is not usually my preference. That being said, there was historical context in this, there was hard topics in this, there was obviously the Black experience at this time, which is not easy in this, and I think it did a really good job of weaving those things in without it being horrific. There's pregnancy, segregation, there's Jim Crow laws, there's racism, there's colorism, there's homophobia, like so many different things in this. So it's not saying that it was necessarily all light and happy. It definitely wasn't, but there was nothing horrible that happened in this book. There's no graphic on-page violence. There's no rape. There's no sexual assault. Well, there's a little bit of grooming / sexual assault, but like very, very minor. And I've said this before, but I almost struggle with that in books nowadays because I'm so used to reading horrible things like that and reading the experience of Black people being mainly horrible like that in different time periods in different countries, but especially in America, that I'm almost always waiting for something really bad to happen. Not just with books written by Black authors, often with books written by authors of color, sometimes by other minorities. I remember feeling exactly this way reading Foster by Claire Keegan. So I did have to like change my perspective a little bit and realize that nothing really horrific was going to happen in this. Kind of calm my own nervous system and say like, you don't have to worry about next page there being a graphic rape scene. Like, you don't have to worry about next scene there being a horrific murder. Maybe that's my problem, you know, maybe that's more on me and the kind of books that I read. But it was, once I made that perspective change, a nice change to have and a very nice book to read. And not everything turns out okay in the end, and not everything is wrapped up in a tiny, tidy bow, but it was overall a wholesome read and an enjoyable read. The next book that I finished in March was The Hangman by Louise Penny. This is actually 6.5 in the Inspector Gamache series, which is a detective series, a murder mystery series set in Three Pines, Canada, which is a fictional, idyllic Canadian town. Gamache is a homicide detective in Quebec, and he travels to Three Pines in the first book, and then we see various reasons for him to return, because of course it's one of those, similar to a quaint English murder village, it's a quaint Canadian murder village where crime seems to continually be happening, even though it is quite an idyllic setting. We see Gamache and his team coming to investigate a hanged man in the woods and figuring out the story from there. This is a very short story. It's only like 70 pages. It's part of the Goodreads imprint, and it's specifically written to be a fast, easy read and an entry point for this series. So I have read the first in this series before, and I did really enjoy it. And then I did watch the first 2 episodes of the TV show that was made with Alfred Molina, which we'll talk about next week because there's a reason. So if you want to hear more about this series and you want to hear more about my experience with it, stay tuned for next week's What I Read in a Week. This was fine. It was very short. It was very easy to read. It was easily digestible. It was not a mystery that hasn't been done before. If you haven't read murder mysteries, you might be totally into this. You might be shocked. You might be excited by the twist or any twists that there are. But if you're at all familiar with this kind of mystery and this kind of cozy mystery, then you'll know what's going to happen right away. Totally fine. Totally enjoyable to read. I kind of read this because I'm still working on the Read What You Own challenge, and I wanted to knock out some more of those short books. But I also kind of wanted to read this because I have the second in the series as well, and I wanted to read this to see if I even wanted to still read the second in the series, which you'll find out more about next week. Overall, good entry point, fine book. If you're looking for a book that you could read all in one sitting, which I did do with this, then I would highly suggest it. The next book that I finished in March is The Goshawk by T.H. White. This is my NYRB book for the month. Every month in 2026, I'm trying to read at least one NYRB book and at least one graphic novel, partly to get my TBR of those things down, and partly just because I have a lot of them, but I don't prioritize them. NYRB often publishes forgotten modern classics, and T.H. White is most known for The Once and Future King and his fantasy writings about King Arthur's knights and Merlin the magician. But this is a nonfiction about his time as a struggling writer when he wanted to adopt a hawk and when he wanted to become a falconer or whatever they're called. He does talk about that in the book and the different names for things. For the ease of this video, we're just going to call it a falconer. So he adopts a young goshawk. It's all about his training methods. It's all about how he comes to understand falconry and hawks and different birds of prey and the idea of training them, taming them, living in coexistence with them. His experience with his particular goshawk, who he names Goss. So it's Goss's journey, his journey, what happens around and about and after that. This is kind of what I wanted from My Dog Tulip, which was another NYRB book that I read last year. First of all, it's much more poetically written. It's much more beautifully written. The prose are beautiful. It's written in epistolary form in a way and kind of in diary form, talking about the different days that he works with Goss and the different experiences they have. But it's also much more internal, and it's much more about his thought process working with Goss and his thought process of having Goss and learning about him and befriending him and being his companion. It's much more about the love that you feel for different animals, enrichment that animals give our life. My Dog Tulip was a little bit about that, but it was mostly about dog sex, whereas this is much more of both a instructional, informational book and a internal, self-reflective book about the idea of animals and loving animals. So if you like beautiful writing, if you like books about animal companions, there they are together. If you like instructional books, this does have diagrams that T.H. White included. And if you like books about writers, because there is a little bit more about T.H. White's writing process in this as well. Just a little bit, that's just a little portion. I would definitely highly recommend this. I'm glad to have read it, and I feel like it kind of redeemed My Dog Tulip a little bit. The last book that I finished this week in March is The Grownup by Gillian Flynn. This is the first Gillian Flynn that I've read, and similarly to The Hangman, this is a short story meant to be easily digestible, meant to be read quickly, get you back into reading, and get you into Gillian Flynn's writing. This book was dedicated to George R.R. Martin. I've never read any Gillian Flynn before, and I picked this one up at a library book sale. I thought I would give it a try. I know she's most famous for Gone Girl. I've kind of been spoiled for that one just through pop culture osmosis. I am wary of these super popular thriller mystery books, like The Woman in the Window, like Gone Girl, like Sharp Objects. So I thought this was a good way to test the waters. I was really intrigued by the first half of this book because it follows a woman who has grown up grifting. Her mother instructed her how to grift people, and then she takes on that job in a more serious manner when she is older and goes out on her own. And the way she's doing that currently is by being a aura reader, not a psychic, but someone who can intuit what's going on in your life. And obviously this is just playing on her ability to be observational and to mark people and to grift them. And I just really like books like that. I really like books about tarot readers. I really like books about psychics, whether they're real or not. I really like TV shows like that. We're actually rewatching The Mentalist, which I think is funny to be watching alongside of this, because one of the things about that TV show is that he was a grifter and now he uses his powers helping the cops and stuff. Anyway, our main character meets a woman who she thinks she can continue to grift. The woman comes in for a psychic reading, an aura reading, and then our main character kind of gets to know her more and says oh, I can do more and gain more from this woman in a more expensive capacity, monetarily expensive capacity. And then the story ensues from there. And that's all you need to know, because this is a very short story and it's very fast paced and it's very quick moving, and I would definitely highly suggest reading this all in one session. It's only 67 pages, and I did myself a disservice by splitting the reading into two. So I read the first part one morning and the next part the next morning, and the first part was really gripping and I was really excited and I was really into the story, and then the second part really flagged for me and I just really didn't enjoy it that much. I didn't think the twists were that interesting. Obviously, Gillian Flynn is known for her twists, so there are going to be twists in this, but I just didn't find them overly compelling. They were kind of obvious, even though maybe the ending doesn't go exactly where you're expecting, exactly where I was expecting. It wasn't overly satisfying, especially because I've read quite a few books that were very satisfying in that capacity lately. But I think if I had read this all in one session, I would have stuck with it more. It would have been more thrilling. I wouldn't have messed up the pacing for myself by stopping in the middle. So if you're going to read this short story, especially if it's the first Gillian Flynn you've ever read, I would highly recommend reading it all in one session. And those are the first 4 books that I read in March, and also a little bonus book that I read at the end of February. Like I said, check my February wrap up for more information about that book. I'm currently reading quite a few books. I think we will not talk about them because this was the first What I Read in a Week. It has definitely gone on a little bit longer than I would like, so we will check back in here next week to see what I'm reading now. I will have finished it by then, and to see what else I get up to reading in March. Let me know what you think of the idea of these videos. Let me know what you think about this format. Let me know what you'd like to see included. Would you like to see videos that I'm planning? Would you like to see books that I'm currently reading? Would you like to see like books that I want to read, like almost a TBR, but more of a pile of possibilities? Do you want me to talk less about books? Do you want me to talk more about books? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read here and what you thought of them. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.